Welcome back, College Baseball Central fans. This is the Best Coast Pod. We talk about everything on the West Coast for baseball. It was a great week of college baseball. Pat, I know you're happy to be back. We got Pat Mullen back with us. How we doing, man?
I'm thrilled to be back. Getting first week of the new job under the belt and getting back to regular timing and regular podcasting and covering the best coast there is with some West Coast ball. I'm thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. We were a few seconds late starting because we were just watching Travis Bazzana hit his career 35th home run, an absolute blast to right field for those of you who are not watching the Oregon State game against Portland. Oregon State just took the lead 6-3 on a massive home run from Travis Bazzana. We'll get into that. He's good. We know it. We're going to talk about some other teams. So, as we do every week, we release our top 25 on Monday. This week we saw a little bit of change there. A lot of West Coast team getting a little bit more love. Others receiving votes. Utah ended at 26, literally one outside the top 25 for us. I feel like they're getting closer and closer. People are starting to listen to us, Pat. Listening to that, Utah's a good baseball team. I know that I had them in my rankings. I believe you had them in your rankings. Where was Utah for you?
So I did not get a rankings in this week. I
Oh,
was down
yeah,
in the depths of the laundry room doing
fair.
spinning some Hillsborough Hops laundry. But I think had I got a poll in this week, Utah would have a number next to their name, not just
Yeah.
the ORV. This Utah team's for real. I'll get into them a little bit later here when we talk about kind of their weekend matchup coming up. Uh, but this is a team that I was pretty low on them to start the season. This is a team that I consistently had at my 11 out of 11 last year in the Pac-12. The jump that they made from last season to this season is incredible, and I think this team is legit. They've made it far enough in the season now. They've earned the title.
Yes, yeah, they have earned every bit of what their midseason grades are. I know I sent out the tweet earlier today talking about midseason grades. So you guys haven't seen it, go take a look, give us comments, let us know what you think on those. But I do believe that they've earned every bit of that B plus rating. We got Oregon at 19. I have them a little bit higher. I do love this Duck team. I love the way they're playing. They have not lost a Pac-12 series. Now, no matter what you want to say, yeah, they haven't swept yet, but they haven't lost a Pac-12 series, and that's tough to do to win every conference series.
Yeah, I like Oregon. I like 19 is not bad. I'd probably agree with you and have them a little bit higher. I think something that is really nice for me with this Oregon team is their pitching starting to get involved a little bit more and starting to become a factor. This offense has been a factor all season long, and we knew it was going to be. But seeing that pitching take that next step is really huge and indicative of to kind of show the postseason success that Oregon could have this season. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Absolutely. And also, just to let everybody know, Mason Guerra also just left the yard. He just hit a bomb to left field. Number 11, UC Irvine. UC Irvine is legit. We love UC Irvine. I think we both believe that they're going to host. They keep up this. Right now, we'll talk more about their overall record and who they got coming up this weekend. But there's not a lot to hate about this UC Irvine team. They got a certified ace. They got 9 guys in the lineup that can hit. There's no doubt to me that this is a national ball club and should be talked about when we get closer to that national 8 seeding. They might be in that conversation. I believe that they're not going to get enough love, but they should host at least.
It's one of the most experienced teams in the country. I feel like, we've harped on how many at bats they returned from last season. It was literally all of them. And then you mentioned it, the ace with Nick Pinto. He's really kind of anchoring that staff, and you could go in and win on a Friday night there. Good luck. The
Yeah.
cap tip to you, but winning on a Friday night in Irvine right now might be the toughest thing to do in the land.
Yeah, and they're going to have to start looking to see what they're going to plan on doing as far as when they get to postseason play, whether they're going to have Pinto go on Fridays or they're going to move him to Saturday role. Either way, he's really, really good. He's a legit Friday night ace in this conference. Number 4, Oregon State. I think that everybody's got them in the top 5. I don't believe that there's any polls that have them outside the top 5. This is a top 5 team. The offense is there. Starting pitching is there. The bullpen needs a little bit of work, and I think that's what's keeping them out of those top 3 slots right now. But everybody loves this team. I think that the offense just really carries them as we're seeing tonight against Portland.
Yeah, it's you. I mean, you hit it right there on the head. The bullpen's kind of the piece that needs to be rounded out a little bit before we get into postseason play. But the offense, they're top 5 team in the country average wise. They're hitting the ball all over the yard. They've hit 2 home runs in the 4.5 minutes that we've been live podcasting tonight. The team's legit. Aiden May being back is so big for this rotation. I know Jaron Hunter's already been chased tonight, but those are just the little things there that, as the season goes on and you got a couple weeks left to kind of tidy things up, those will be important in regionals, super regionals, and in Omaha.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a team that's kind of going the opposite direction for us right now, Pat. Long Beach State split this week 2-2. Not their best performance. They're now 16, 12 and 1 and 5 and 7 in Big West. The panic button has got to be start being pushed here. They get San Diego State and CSUN. That's not any easier. CSUN's been really good in conference play, and we know that they can hit. Long Beach State has a big road ahead of them this week, but they have got to start finding ways to win ball games.
Yeah, what was it? Was Long Beach State 13-0-1 at some point a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago? I feel like that win total number was quite a bit higher a few weeks ago, and then to see it where it is now, I think the alarms are going off. The lights are blaring. It's just been kind of an up and down season for Long Beach State, and they've struggled to find consistency since getting into conference play. I think you mentioned it, CSUN having a strong start to conference play. I think Long Beach State needs to kind of take this weekend. I think the skill level here for the Dirtbags is a bit higher than CSUN has, so Long Beach State has to capitalize on that and right the ship this weekend. If they drop this series this weekend, then it's full blown fire drill down there
Yeah.
in Long
I
Beach.
mean, there's not enough time to catch up, right? So even them winning the conference would be a really tough task, huge, tall task for them. They're going to go on the road here and win against CSUN. They at least got to get to 500, right? So if they can get back in that realm there, but 2-1 doesn't put them there. They're still 7-8, so they have to sweep this week just to be able to put themselves in that position. A team that we have not been able to talk about, and I'm going to tell the people why here. UCSD. The problem with UCSD, we love them. We want them to be great. They are not eligible for postseason play this season because they got bumped to D1, which I know we all agree is a really stupid rule. If you get bumped up a conference, you should be able to play conference championships. They're not allowed to. They have to sit out until the 2025 season as far as postseason play goes. Now, let's talk about them. They're 21-8. They're 8-4 in conference. They're really playing great baseball. They get San Diego as their midweek, and then they're going to play UCI at home. UC Irvine, 24-4, 10-2 in conference. They lost one last weekend to UCSB, who's really good. We know to lose that one wasn't the biggest deal. They're at USC, and then they got to travel to UCSD. I like the Anteaters, but this is probably their biggest test outside of UCSB and playing some of these good teams. It's a big week for them to play at USC and then play against this Cal San Diego team.
It's just a tough kind of 10-day stretch in general for Irvine. With UCSB, it's not an easy. That's a hard fought 3-day weekend series against those guys, and you think you might have a breather. No, you go play Pac-12 USC, and then you got to come in or go on the road, continue on the road, and go play UCSD, like you mentioned, ineligible for postseason play, but can still give a shot at winning that regular season Big West championship. That's kind of Irvine's biggest task or test right there. Is Irvine's only got the 2 games on them. Irvine, we know they can hit. We talked about Pinto earlier. And with the returning at bats, there's guys that are starting to show up. Miles Smith is one of them. Abraham Garcia Pacheco is another guy. These guys got at bats last year, but maybe they didn't perform like we're seeing some of them Anteaters this year. Those guys both batting over 300 now this late in the season. Super big for the Anteaters. And that's going to be the test for UCSD is going to be the pitching. Guys like Matthew Dahlquist have looked really good. And what's helped with the Tritons is the starting pitching has gotten them to their bullpen, and their bullpen has been lights out. Their big guy at the end, Isaac Martinez, he's got like a .5 whip in his sub .5 ERA with 7 saves and 15 appearances this season. He is a legit back end guy. So for Irvine, it's going to be, can you get a lead early and hold on to that lead against this UCSD team that has shown that they're nothing to take lightly.
Yeah, and them at home that's good. Like it's going to be a great series. I'm excited for this one. I think it might be one of the better ones on the West Coast this weekend. I know we've got a couple here in the WCC that we're excited about as well. But UC Irvine's got to take care of business and just keep doing what they're doing. They continue to win series. I think that it's going to be hard to push them out of a top 16, let alone possibly getting into that top 8 talk. And we'll talk more about that the closer we get to postseason play. UCSB is now 17-10. Not where they wanted to be, not where everybody thought they would be. A lot of predictions had them much higher. 5-4 overall in Big West play. They get a little bit of an easier week, but not the most easy week. But they get LMU at home and then Hawaii at home. This feels like a get right weekend if there ever was one for UCSB to kind of put themselves back in the contention here of trying to win this conference.
Yeah, they need to come back strong this weekend. Hawaii, a resilient team. We saw they kind of went toe to toe with Irvine a few weeks ago in Hawaii. I'm bummed
Yep.
that this one is stateside here on the mainland, so it'll be what, a 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. first pitch at latest. No 10 or 11 o'clock first pitches out here for us.
Yeah.
But I heard a little bit that Agar might be banged up a little bit, so that's going to hurt the Gauchos in this series as they're going to have to kind of resort to some more arms, which is sounded like it was going to be kind of their strong suit at the beginning of the season. Obviously, sitting at 17-10, that hasn't quite been the case. But I think UCSB, I don't want to say their backs are against the wall, but they're getting there, and I think they can feel the heat a little bit. And I think they come out and take care of business this weekend.
Yeah, the seat's getting a little warmer. I think Gallagher's going to end up going on Friday. I don't think Hager's going to throw on Friday. I think they're probably going to arrest him and see if they can get him back at some point this season. Really tough loss for them if he is going to be out for any extended period of time. But UCSB, the Gauchos have got to figure it out. Okay, they were picked to be a host team. They were picked to do all these big things. Now at 17-10 and 5-4 in conference, they've really got to turn things around if they expect to do anything else the rest of this season and get into postseason play. Santa Clara, WCC, they were the darlings, right? They were the team that were like, oh man, this team's crushing. They're great. They have so much offense, so much firepower. They get swept by Gonzaga last weekend. They're now 3-6 in WCC play after being swept by Gonzaga and Portland. They're 15-14 overall. They play UCSD at UCSD and Pepperdine this week. Pepperdine is a must win for Santa Clara at home. They've got to figure out a way to finish them off. But UCSD is no pushover. Like we've already said, the Tritons are tough, and they got to go play this Triton team at San Diego. It's not any easier for Santa Clara, but they've got to figure it out. They got to be a little bit sharper. They didn't score this weekend, which was the strength of their team, Pat.
Yeah, that's the big thing that jumped out to me from looking over box scores this weekend is that their offense has kind of fallen flat, and we've seen it a little bit now. Obviously, sweeping their last weekend series to get to that 3-6, go get swept, sweep, and get swept. That's very unsustainable. You cannot get through a conference season playing like that, and the offense is going to have to be the spark to get this team kind of right to where they need to go. Pepperdine looks like they have a nice conference record. I think they've played a couple weaker teams, but so had Gonzaga. And that's kind of where this was a head scratcher for me is Gonzaga is not a power team like we've seen in the past, where they had a strong lineup and guys that can throw it and eat up innings on the bump. So Santa Clara kind of needs to look within this week, turn things around. They've got a test in the midweek tonight, and then they got to take care of business at Pepperdine this weekend.
Yeah, it's a must win at this point in the season, being 3-6, because otherwise they're playing their way out of WCC contention, especially with Portland already being 6-0 and another team, San Diego, being 7-2 ahead of them. They're playing their way out of contention if they can't figure out how to go get some wins every single weekend from here on out. San Diego, 20-10, 7-2 in conference. They get Hawaii for their midweek at home. And then they travel to Portland. Joe Etzel Field, the wonderful Joe Etzel Field that's in our background today. Portland is 20-9 now, 6-0 in conference. They're at Oregon State today that we're talking about. That game is now 7-4. Portland's still making them pay. It's starting to battle up. And then they get that San Diego team at home. I don't know if there's a bigger WCC series for the whole year than what we're going to see this weekend between these two teams. The way that Portland has already gone down and taken care of Santa Clara, we thought that was going to be the weekend series. They went sweep. Now they get San Diego at home. This is a must win for Portland if they want to make that statement and say, hey, they should be a top 25 team.
This is it. This is the one. Going to touch on San Diego a bit first. Talking about Santa Clara and their offense being a problem. San Diego is the opposite of that. San Diego has rattled off 9 straight. And in those 9 wins, 5 of them, they've scored 13 runs or more. This is a team right now that guys like Jack Costello is just kind of vaulting everybody up to kind of where they're at. There might be Jack Gurovich on that one. But yeah, this San Diego team, I think they take care of business today with Hawaii. I'm super excited. I'm going to try and squeeze it and get to the Sunday game up here. Unfortunately, prior commitments on Friday and Saturday. But this Portland team is ready for the task. 6-0. Given Oregon State all they can handle tonight, 7-4. It looks like that's going to be an offensive number that'll run late into the night. Thankfully, it's a nice night down there in Corvallis, so not to worry there. but the Pilots sweeping 2 series back to back to start their West Coast Conference play. Santa Clara seemed like a bigger series. Now Santa Clara has fallen off a little bit. Pacific is just a bad baseball team.
Not
They have
good.
the lowest batting average in the nation, which I'll explain a little bit later how I came to find out on that statistic. Um, but Portland's looking, the offense is getting back. They had a lot of guys hitting above 300 last year. They're starting to creep and get back to those numbers. The pitching on the weekend, they moved things around a little bit. Carter Gaston is now going on Saturdays. Sam Schuster is now going on Sundays.
Yeah.
And it seems like that was just the perfect little move to figure out that weekend rotation because they've been rolling ever since Loomis has made that move.
Yes, and Sam Sturr being on Sundays is real tough. We were talking about him being a 1-2 punch. He got beat up there a little bit for that mid few weeks there. He's found it. He found it again. He found it again. We'll talk about him more, but the 13 strikeouts career high and another 9 innings of pitching. Just great for Sam Sturr to go out there and just dominate on Sunday. Good to see him getting his mojo back. Let's dive into some Pac-12, Pat. Arizona is now 18-13. They already beat Stanford in the midweek. They dominated Stanford and went 12-1. Let's just say that. They're 10-5 in conference now. Also, they are sitting at second place in conference play. They played Stanford already. They're playing Louisiana Tech. They have the week off, so they are off in conference play. Arizona has caught a little bit of fire. Jackson Kent on Fridays, and the offense is starting to go. Mason White has been terrific at shortstop and started hitting balls out of the ballpark like nobody's business. Really excited for this Arizona team, but can they keep it up? They have not played some of those tougher teams yet in conference.
There's one number that jumped off the page to me that makes me think that they can keep this up, and it's the amount of free bags that they don't give up. Looking at the Pac-12, every single team has at least walked at least 100 batters. Arizona's only walked 78. That's the best in the country for walks per nine. And then their ERA is at 4.02, which is the second best in the Pac-12 as well. So you've got guys like the Friday night guy, Jackson Kent, and then they're all doing it. It's pretty impressive coming into the season. You and I, we talked a lot about the bats that this Arizona team was going to have. And we knew about Jackson Kent a little bit, but we didn't know what the rest of that pitching staff was going to look like. I remember saying that I thought they were pitching backwards and just hoping to win on Friday and Saturday and do what they can on Sundays. But no, this is a staff that they know what they're doing and they're getting results.
Yeah, they're going out there, they're competing, they're throwing strikes, they're saying, hey, beat us by hitting us, and teams haven't been able to do it yet. It's been very impressive to see. I know that a lot of the runs that have been produced about teams in the Pac-12, a lot of free passes, and free passes seem to score. Arizona's taking care of business in that department, and being 10-5 now in conference is gigantic. A team that's really swung their season from where they were at the beginning here, all the way back up to 18-13 now. 5 games over 500 is huge for this Arizona ball club. A team that people thought was down. I know that you and I were a little hard on in this preseason, and they've found their way back. Cal, 16-13. They're 5-10 in conference. They're taking on Washington State this week, who's 17-13 and 7-8 in conference. Washington State's at Gonzaga for their midweek. Cal's versus St. Mary's. Both those teams should win those ball clubs. Then they get each other. Cal's traveling up to the Palouse. Cal has to figure things out. I mean, this is a team that we were talking about being in that possible top 25, a few weeks ago. They lose the series at Oregon, and they have not been right since, and they're just not getting offensive production. They're getting stuff from Peyton Schultz. They're getting stuff from Zomotis, and they're getting stuff from Caleb Lomavita. But outside that, they're just missing stuff. They have 6 holes in the lineup right now, and they're not getting the pitching that they had early this season. Pat, how does Cal figure it out? And Washington State just continues to find ways to win. They also find ways to lose, unfortunately.
And that kind of last piece you said there on finding ways to win and finding ways to lose versus what Cal's got going on is what kind of piqued my interest. I was diving in a little bit deeper on this matchup. These two teams, they're basically looking into a mirror when they're looking at each other. Their numbers are shockingly close. Their team ERAs are off by 0.02, and their batting averages are the same. Unfortunately for both these teams, those numbers aren't very good. I would say they're bad, but they're very mediocre. With a 5 ERA and an average in the 280s. It's going to be one of those things that which team shows up for both of these ball clubs this weekend? Is it going to be the Washington State that we saw early on in the year that were maybe knocking off some teams that they didn't really have the business to beating? Or is it going to be teams that we saw drop in series to Stanford and struggling with that UCLA team? Same thing goes for Cal. Is this a Cal team that we've seen that what they can do, or is it the Cal team that gets swept at home by Arizona, who we just talked about? So a real interesting series up on the Palouse this weekend. That I think will be a fight for what eventually is like sixth place, maybe seventh place in the Pac-12 standings.
Yeah, they're kind of fighting their way to the middle now, and it's crazy to see that that's where they're at. But man, I mean, Cal is right there at the bottom of the conference now. They're tied at the bottom of the conference with UCLA, where we did not have them picked. A couple weeks ago, we would have never imagined that this Cal team had dropped so far. Washington State playing their way right to the middle. Of course, there's one team below both those. It's Washington, but we'll get
Yeah.
into that next. UCLA 12 and 17, not the UCLA we're going to love. 5 and 10 in conference. They get Pepperdine at home, and then they're at Washington. Washington 9-15 and 1, 3 and 9 in conference play. Being swept by Oregon State does not help, and then swept this last weekend, or that doesn't help. They get Seattle, and then they get to host UCLA. I feel like this is just a broken down series between both these teams, and I don't know which one's going to show up and actually play baseball. I'd like to think Washington wins at home, but I'm not certain on either one of these ball clubs.
Yeah, I think if when the Pac-12 baseball schedule first released, I probably would have circled this one. Maybe not said must watch, but it would have been one that at least piqued my interest a little bit, especially with Washington coming off the year they had last year, and UCLA with so much kind of young, unproven talent with this season. Uh, that's not the case. This is kind of an ugly series to watch. I think, honestly, to put it a little bluntly, anytime you're watching this Washington baseball team, it's kind of a tough watch. I mentioned earlier about Pacific's batting average being the lowest in the country. The only reason I found that is because I was wanting to see how low Washington's was, and Washington's 2 spots above Pacific. It's the third worst batting average in the country. This Washington team just can't seem to put runs together. That series win in Texas is mystifying, just a total one-off, it seems. But UCLA, we keep waiting and saying that things are going to turn around. I'm going to be a fool and say it again this week, but I feel like at some point the talent that's there just has to, and their talent level is higher than Washington's, so I think they can go in and take care of business on the road this weekend.
Yeah, they've got to figure it out. I think it's probably UCLA, right? Because the talent's going to eventually play out, and Washington doesn't seem to have anybody, and the hitting is just a real question mark there for Washington. They're not putting it together. You'd like to see Washington step up at home. I just don't see it happening already, and they've already had their week off from Pac-12 play, so they're going to be trying to figure out ways here to compete at this level, and they're just not fighting it right now. They're the only Pac-12 team to not have 10 wins yet, and that they're not even close. They're one win away, of course, but it feels like they're an eternity away after being 9 weeks into the season, and we're not sitting at 10
Yeah.
wins yet. So tough to have 1 win per week so far into the season. Oregon, 22 and 8, 8 and 4 in conference versus Sac State today and tomorrow. They have two double header there, or 2 games. Then they're at home against USC. USC, of course, is at home against UCI Irving, and then at Oregon. USC is now 15 and 16 and 9 and 5 in conference. This team has come alive as of late, and it felt like they turned their season there when they beat Oregon State in the 2 game set, with the third game being rained out. USC has really found pitching. Caden Aoki has been the dude that we thought he could be on Fridays. He's showing up. He keeps throwing 6 innings, 1 run, 7 innings, 1 run. He just goes out there and he's just been beating up these really good teams. Oregon, again, we talked about. There's those all starting pitching. They've been really good in the bullpen. Also, they've got to figure out ways here though, because they're 8 and 4. Like I said, they haven't swept a weekend series yet. They're gonna have to take on this USC team. I'm leaning towards USC this weekend because I feel like they're the hotter team right now. But if Oregon wins this series at home, even if it's a 2-1, they gotta love where they're at, being probably second in the Pac-12.
Yeah, this Oregon ball club just continues to kind of get better and better every week. It seems like, and I don't think they're quite to their potential yet, which is kind of a scary thought. But you hit it on the head. You see, USC's really turned a corner. Uh, a couple weeks ago to now, if you told me that USC would have a winning Pac-12 record, but also be 3 games above the Pac-12 and not drop a game to Oregon State,
Yeah.
I would have not believed you in the slightest. But I think USC, they're really starting to click. They just need to work on that consistency, and it seems like they've found a little bit of it. If they can take that with them on the road into Eugene, it looks like the weather should be all right this weekend. And I think they've got a chance to knock off the Ducks. But like you mentioned, with Oregon, eyeballing that second spot in the Pac-12. I think they're red hot and rolling. I have a hard time seeing Oregon losing this series. I don't think Oregon gets the sweep. I think this is a really hard fought 2-1 series win for Oregon. But in the game of baseball, we all know it's a game of inches. A couple bounces could go one way, and Oregon could find themselves dropping the series or winning all three. It could go either way.
We always talk about the Friday night matchups in the Pac-12. Well, we get a good one here with Aoki going up against RJ Gordon. I'm excited for that Friday night matchup. Cannot wait to see what these two teams produce. But again, I think that this one's almost bigger for Oregon in the fact of trying to be one of those host teams, trying to keep going with where they're going as far as winning every season in the Pac-12. USC can turn their season though if they go and figure out a way to beat UCI, and if they can come and beat Oregon, their season starts to make that turn where they get over 500 and they really say, okay, we're back, we're battling, we're gonna fight for a 2 or 3 seed and try to get back into this tournament play. Utah, 21-9, 7-5 in conference. They were off last weekend. They went 2-1 on the week. They lost one to CSUN, they won one to CSUN, and they had a rain out. They get BYU for the midweek, who's played really well, played really good baseball as of late. And then they're at Arizona State, who is going another direction. Arizona State gets Grand Canyon, and then at home against Utah. Arizona State is now 15-17 after being swept by Oregon State, and is 6-9. Thomas Burns is still out. He may be back for Friday, but it doesn't appear likely that he will be back. Love this Utah team. Love the way that they're playing baseball. They are going up or going down to play Arizona State. This is a big series for both squads. If Utah can figure out a way to go 2-1 or 3-0, they're putting themselves in there and saying that we are a top 3 team. If Arizona State can come figure out a way to win, they're going to feel really good about themselves turning their season back around.
Yeah, this is a fun series, and I think this is gonna be a really fun series for Utah. And I'll get into that a little bit here. But usually when we talk about teams going to Arizona State and series taking place at Arizona State, we talk about the long ball. We talk about the amount of runs they're going to get put up. That's not how Utah plays. They're very small ball. They want to get guys on it, get them around, steal, sack bunts, blue pits. Oregon State fans, we all saw it on that Sunday game when they came back from 9 down or 10 down late. And that is where Utah has the advantage this weekend. Arizona State is 218th in the country with walks per 9. They're giving up 5.5 bags every game. And add that on their top of their team ERA being at 7. I think Utah just picks this team apart all weekend long. The pitching's just been the issue for the Sun Devils, and Utah just hasn't kind of run into that issue yet. It's not that they have kind of a handful of guys or even 1 or 2 guys that are really throwing the ball really well and putting their name up in the bright lights. It's just a collective effort from Utah to score more runs than they're allowing. And it's worked out for them as they're sitting 21-9. And I think we'll take a Pac-12 series here on the road and really set themselves up for maybe looking forward to performing in the big tournament rather than just a Pac-12 tournament this year.
Absolutely. And we look at it, and this Arizona State squad was already low on arms, right? Now they've lost Thomas Burns. Connor Marco got roughed up a little bit against Oregon State. He wasn't bad. He just got roughed up a little bit. I mean, most people are going to against that lineup. So you don't feel too terrible if you are Arizona State. But the fact that you're sitting at 6-9 now, halfway through conference play, has you questioning things. The offense has been there. They've scored a ton of runs. They're just not outscoring teams because, like you said, the pitching just has not kept people off the ball. 7 earned runs a game is not going to win you a ton of ball games. So, interested to see how Arizona State kind of turns it here, playing at at Grand Canyon, and then having to face Utah at home. Hopefully, they can figure it out. I think Utah also wins 2 here. I don't think that they sweep, but I think this Utah team just puts a stamp on their season on how good they actually have been. Stanford is now 13-17. Not a lot of people predicted it. I am one of those people that did predict the Stanford team to be struggling. I will take my high road another day. It is not today. 6-6 in conference. They get Arizona, who they've already lost to, and then they're going to Oregon State. Oregon State is 26-4 now, 8-3 in conference. They're back to number 1 in the conference. They get Portland tonight. It's 8-6 in that ball game right now, by the way. Then they get Stanford at home. Oregon State has a chance here to sweep Stanford, and they haven't done that in a very long time. They would love to take care of business at home and go out and beat the Stanford team up. Stanford goes out. They've already lost the one to Arizona. If they get swept at Oregon State this weekend, their season is fairly over at this point.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I've got it written down here. Is this is a tough time for Stanford to have to come up and play Oregon State. I mean, it's tough, and on any team in the Pac-12 looking forward to seeing you got Oregon State in their house coming up next on your schedule is tough. But uh, this is typically a marquee matchup every year in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
This is a series you always have circled. I remember waiting outside Goss 2 hours early just to get a ticket, go in and saw Heimlich Fan 14 on Friday night, and what was a great ball game, a great series that whole weekend. I think that was number 2 versus number 3, Oregon State and Stanford. Stanford's just it's not they're not the Stanford that we all kind of think of when you mentioned it how you knew this was coming a little bit. I did not. I had high hopes for Stanford and a bounce back and believed in David Esker. Uh, but they're sitting at 500 in conference play. They're going to obviously hope to come out of this weekend above that. I don't see that happening at all, though. This Oregon State team did exactly what they needed to do following that off week down in SoCal, coming back and sweeping Arizona State. Uh, there's enough to be said about guys like Travis Bazana and Jacob Kamatz. We could go on for hours talking about some of the performances and the season long performances those guys have had. But what's really promising is guys that maybe struggled a little bit out of the gate, like Elijah Hainline and Gavin Turley, are starting to find their stroke. They're back
Both
both
over
above
300
300,
now.
and they're
Yeah.
really finding their groove. And this Stanford team, we're finding consistent pitching with guys like Matt Scott. Christian Lim has been a struggle. Now's not the time to try and write that. You're going into a hellstorm, and you don't really have the weapons equipped to come out alive.
And the faithful at Goss are jonesing for a sweep of this Stanford team. They've been waiting for it for a long time. Going in here and playing Stanford at home just feels like a great recipe for this Oregon State squad to really try to get to be the first team to 30 wins. It'll be impressive if they can go out and finish beating Portland this week. And if they can somehow sweep Stanford, they're at 30 wins already at this point in the season. I do believe that they take care of business. I don't know if it's a sweep. I think either Scott or Christian Lim shows up and actually pitches well. I don't know if it's going to be well enough though, because if Aiden May is healthy, it looks like he's going to try to throw upwards. He may not have restrictions this week. He might be restricted at 90 to 100. If he can go and Komatsu throws like he did, and then it leaves it to Sunday, so you're had an off day, and we still go out there and get a win there if you're Oregon State. Big weekend series coming up in Stanford. Like you said, it's not the right time to try to right this ship when you're going up and facing this offense. That's one of the best in the country. So I'm very excited to see this games, all three of them. I will not be there this weekend. I was there last weekend. It was great to see all the wonderful fans, by the way, at Goss Stadium. Thanks for welcoming me with open arms as always. But I got to see so many of you. Oregon State, I feel like they take care of business this week, Pat. So we're gonna have to wait and see, but I think that it's a sweep. Who's your winning team of the week? I know that we go through this every week and we always have so many different ones. There's so many to choose from this week because some teams played really well.
Yeah, this was a trickier one to me for the most weeks. Usually, there's like one or two teams that jump off, and we'll split them up. But I ended up settling on the University of San Diego this week. A clean 4-win week. One of them over a Pac-12 opponent in USC, and then they go out and they sweep their conference weekend and really kind of insert themselves in the thick of that West Coast Conference race, which for a little bit looked like it might just be a Portland and Santa Clara race to the end. Now UP's got 2 games up on USD, but they've also got 3 in hand, I believe, as San Diego's played 3 conference weekends, Portland only the 2.
Yeah.
And what better weekend for them to be the winner of the week when they're going to go up against Portland this weekend, which should be a great matchup. One of my favorite parts about the West Coast Conference is all of their games are on ESPN Plus, so it's very easy to watch. I recommend that a lot of you guys tuned in right now tune into this one because it will be really good baseball played up here in the Pacific Northwest.
Again, I can't say it enough. Joe Etzel is a wonderful ballpark to go watch a game. Look at those purple chairs. Go watch a game if you haven't been able to go see one yet. You might not even get a seat this week because they might be packed up with the San Diego and how good the weather is supposed to be. Big weekend series. I cannot wait to watch this one here. Very excited to watch this game. I'm hoping that Portland holds on because I believe that Portland is the better team here and at home. I think this is going to be a great one. But San Diego had a great week. Very excited about how they played this week, and this is just setting up for a WCC showdown.
Yep.
My winning team of the week, it's Oregon State. I mean, going 5-0 and doing it with the offense that they did was just impressive to get back after struggles down at USC, which was really at UCI. It was very big for Oregon State to right the ship and say, okay, we're going to get back to our ways. We're going to fix this up. Also, still missing three pieces in that lineup. No Trent Caraway, no Brady Casper, no Micah McDowell. I'm hearing that Brady Casper could be coming back sooner rather than later here, maybe this weekend, maybe the next weekend. He seems to be working his way back. McDowell is going to be missing a little bit more time, and Caraway is going to be out for a little bit longer as well. Still hoping to have both those guys back by the end of April, possibly by the Duck series, but more likely we'll see them into May. But it's got to be Oregon State for me. 5 wins on the week, just huge, just getting back and sweeping Arizona State, which was awesome at home. Who's your underperformer this week, Pat? I know that we don't love having to talk about these underperforming teams, but who didn't live up to the bill this weekend?
Yeah, someone's always kind of a bummer, but I have been pretty high on this team in the past, so I feel a little less bad about it. But Cal's my underperformer of the weekend. I know I talked highly on Arizona, and I still think Arizona's a good team, so it doesn't reflect too poorly on Cal. But getting swept in your own ballpark is never a good thing coming out of the weekend, especially in conference play. They did catch a midweek win, but poor Pacific, they keep taking shots here today. That is who it was over. A win is a win no matter what. But Cal looking to bounce back big time this weekend, and they're going to have to. But after the performance from last weekend, I think I had to choose them as my underperformer.
Yeah, they were on my short list as well because neither one of us really love talking about these teams in a negative light. They didn't play great. Mine is Santa Clara. When you lose series in your conference and you get swept, when you are predicted to be one of the top two, if not the top three teams, and you get swept at home, it's just not the greatest feeling for Santa Clara. And to lose to a Gonzaga team who hasn't been electric, they haven't been great. That's a tough one for me. And when you're sitting there now and you're looking at yourself and you're 3-6, it's time to start evaluating that offense. And they did it in just such a weird way by not scoring, right? This team had scored so much all year round. The last 6 games, they really haven't scored at all. They've been averaging 2.8 runs a game. That's not Santa Clara baseball, and they're not doing it with the sticks. They got to figure out something. So that's my underperforming team this week. They can of course turn it around. They get Pepperdine this weekend, but they got to figure something out, especially offensively. Who are you giving props to this week? I know that we had a lot of good performances. A lot of coaches did a great job, but a lot of players. Who are you giving props to this week?
I'm cheating. I couldn't just select one of them, so I'm taking all three of them and giving Pacific one last slight before we close the door today. I'm giving it to the entire UP starting pitchers, man. All three of them this weekend. Nick Brink, Carter Gaston, Sam Stura, another name shout out for them. Their combined numbers, 30 strikeouts, averaging 10 a week. I think two of them, I think Gaston and Stura both set career strikeout records.
Yeah.
11 hits combined between the three of them, 3 runs all weekend off the starting pitching, and they only allowed 6 free passes to that 15 en route to sweeping them. This team, I know we talked about the hitting. That was kind of my big thing leading into the season, was being high on their experience of their hitters and the quality of their hitters they have returning. They brought in arms that they needed to bolster that side of their game, and it's paying off. They're seeing the rewards of it as they're sitting 20-9, 6-0, and looking to improve on that this weekend.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that 100%. That pitching staff was so good this weekend. I know we mentioned Samster already having his career record for 13 strikeouts and just being really good. Nick Brink, I mean, they're good. Okay, Nick
Yeah.
Brink is top 5 in the country in strikeouts. So there's no getting around it. This pitching staff for Portland is good, and I feel like no matter what, at this point, they're going to find their way into postseason play. They're a dangerous 2 or 3. Whatever they get seeded as, they are a very dangerous team, and nobody really wants to see them in with that pitching staff. I'm going to go another pitcher. It's Jacob Komatz, and I'm going to mention
Yep.
another guy as well. But Jacob Komatz, 9 innings, 4 hits. One was a home run in the ninth. He was trying to challenge a fastball, got hit out of the ballpark by a pinch hitter. I was just looking to hit dead red fastball. No big deal. Really good. He was bouncing around. He looked like himself again, right? Like this looked like that freshman year Jacob Komatz that he said, I'm in control. I know what I'm throwing. I'm going to go beat up the strike zone. The fact that he didn't have any walks was gigantic for Oregon State. And the fact that he was just beating up the zone with fastball, curveball, changeup. I was very impressed with Jacob Komatz this weekend, and he just really looked like he was feeling himself again. Happy for the young man to be performing again. The other one that I want to mention just really fast, Jacob Walsh broke the career record for home runs for Oregon also. Big for him, big weekend series for the Ducks to win. Again, they won 2-1, but big weekend for Jacob Walsh to set the career record for home runs, especially with guys out there like Jake Yovan and other people who have led the way for the Oregon Duck program. For him to go out there and do this, really awesome for him. Congratulations to Jacob Walsh. All right, Pat, we're at that point. Final thoughts. What are you thinking for this week? What are you excited for? I know you got lots going on.
I'm just excited to have my eyeballs back on college baseball for a little bit this weekend here with the whole minor league team out of town. I got the week to kind of take it all in and watch some good old college ball. Excited to get back to it. A lot of great matchups this weekend. And we're starting to really get to that point in the season too, where these conference matchups, you kind of know what these teams are bringing in, and you know what to look for. So that, like I mentioned, that Portland USD, I'm all over it. I'm hoping I can be in attendance on Sunday at Joe Etzel. If so, I'll have live coverage on my Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But just in general, excited to just dive back into college baseball and really get into it here as we're kind of getting close to third. We're looking around home here and head down the home stretch. So
we're already at week 9. We are more than halfway through this season. We are cruising right along. We are halfway into conference season. I am also excited for college baseball this weekend. I think that my series that I keep an eye on, UCSD and Irvine, I think this is big for both squads. Yes, UCSD can't play postseason play, but it's good for them to build up these wins if they can do it. UC Irvine, huge for them to play a team like UCSD. Portland and San Diego, massive. I will have at least one eye glued to that one all weekend long. And then, of course, Oregon State and Stanford. I think that's a huge storyline, just seeing if they can take care of business and beat the Stanford club. Utah and Arizona State also big. I think it's bigger for Utah than it is for Arizona State. But if Arizona State stumbles again at the gate here and they find themselves getting swept or down 2-1, they're really playing their way out of any postseason chances as well. Very excited, Pat. Thanks for coming on again, man. So pumped you were back with me this week. I know the folks were
yeah.
probably happy they didn't have to hear me talk for 30 minutes all by myself. So
No, thanks for holding it down while I was away, man.
I got you. I got
Yeah.
you. Thanks for joining us again. We'll be bringing out new content every week, either Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll be releasing content. We think we're going to do the live show from now on. That way it goes directly up on YouTube for you guys and Spotify and Apple playlists. Go ahead and go download that. Follow us at collegebaseballcentral.net or go on there and go find us on X. I know myself and Pat are both on there. Go ask us questions. We love answering questions about college baseball. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you all next week.